TTRPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I didn't think enough about what to introduce myself as, but I'm Sam also.
And today we will be discussing the rest of Disc 2, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The rest of Disc 2 of Final Fantasy VII. As a reminder, we are selling out hard and playing the most popular JRPG of all time to get that great search engine optimization so that we can have eyes on our poll to decide our next game, which is either Skies of Arcadia and Paper Mario, and it is currently not unanimous anymore.
Whoa!
We got a come from behind single vote for Paper Mario. So if you want to assist in the greatest upset of all time, there's only one more week to do so. So everyone come out of the woodwork and vote for Paper Mario.
Imagining Paper Mario holding up a newspaper that says Skies of Arcadia wins.
So while all you Paper Mario fans head on over to www.rpgbook.club to let your voice be heard, how was everybody's week or two or three or however many?
I'm so tired all the time.
Me too. I've been just randomly falling asleep. Like I'll put the kids down at 8 and then I'll sit down to decompress for a couple of seconds just to decide how I want to spend my night. And then in those couple of seconds, I'll fall asleep until about 10:30, be like, oh shit, then not be able to fall asleep at all the whole rest of the night. Daylight savings time is going great.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
usually what happens to me if I get woken up in the middle of the night. It sucks.
Yeah. I have been taking some vitamin D because I have a primary care physician now, but I haven't for years.
Oh.
And I'm going to meet with one to I'll meet with him to hopefully get some ADHD medication. Like I had something due on Friday last week, and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, I literally clocked in and sat at my desk for 8 hours, internally screaming at myself to get any work done and not doing so. So my masking isn't working very much anymore. So I'm hoping to get a diagnosis and some medication. But while I was in the interim for that, my friend Deanne said that when she met with her doctor, he started her on vitamin D before giving her the heavier stuff later, because vitamin D deficiency and ADHD go very hand in hand. And it's been okay. I've done work this week, so it's better than before. But I also stopped and mounted all of the surge protectors in my room Monday morning, so it's not perfect, but it is better than it has been.
ADHD is not fun.
Yeah, that's true.
I apparently have it too.
For all of the put on a podcast and cross stitch for 12 hours, you also get a bunch of screaming into the voids, trying to will your body to do any of the things that you know you need to do.
Pretty much. Fun times. Well, last week or two, I had a new date. It went well. She's really cool, so that was nice. And then I also picked up a random game on sale on PlayStation, and I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit. It's called The Eternal Cylinder. It's by the same studio that made Xenoclash way back in the day. It's very strange and has very off-putting creature design, but it's basically about this world that's getting slowly steamrolled by this, cylinder that just seems to span the entire world and is running over everything to flatten it. And you play as a weird little creature called Trebum, and you can find other little Trebums and recruit them into your little Trebum family and transform your little Trebums with different mutations that help you do things. And it's very strange, but I care a whole lot about my little Trebum family. So, it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
This looks bizarre and amazing.
It's extremely bizarre. Like, honestly, I only played Xenoclash because someone else had me do it in my Patreon book club, and it is odd enough that I looked at that game's screenshots and was immediately like, is this by these guys? And it was. It's yeah, it's very strange, but you know, I've got a bunch of little guys and I want to save them from the weird existential horror of a planet being completely steamrolled. So
that's wild and cool.
Neat. So I think maybe a lot of my problems that I have might stem from severe allergies that I never realized were a thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. A friend has been telling me to go see these sinus doctors. And so I went, and they were like pointing at diagrams and stuff. And the doctor was like, now, normally air goes through here and this opens and closes and stuff, but when you're an allergy boy, it doesn't. Those were his words. Which was interesting. But yeah, they scanned my head and they say I have a lot of allergic inflammation. And this could presumably be the cause of why I very often feel congested, why I very often don't feel quite rested after sleep. Probably the reason why my ears have had pressure in them for 2 decades.
That'll do it.
And apparently I also have some hearing loss because of that.
Huh.
So, in a couple weeks, I am going in to actually get the allergy testing where they put a bunch of allergens in my skin and see what happens.
Oh.
Those are fun.
And hopefully they'll say I'm really allergic to stuff. I want them to say I'm really allergic to stuff because if I am, then we can fix it. If they say you're not allergic to anything, then it's like, well, shit, I'm just like this.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. This has not been a HIPAA-compliant podcast this week.
No.
Apologies to all of our EU listeners. Please don't tell on us. And yes, I know that this is not how GDPR works. Yeah, the only other cool thing about me this week is I beat Celeste. I climbed the mountain.
Nice. Like the base game?
Yeah.
Cool.
And I was using my 8-bit Do controller, which has a really good D-pad, and yet I still, with the D-pad, could not do diagonals reliably, even though it has a really good D-pad and nobody else has that problem. I just suck. So I was frustrated trying to do this one bit over and over again, because like trying to like pivot in the air with the control stick was not doing it for me either. And then I realized that also connected to my Steam Deck is my N64 Tribute 64 controller, which has an orthogonal joystick.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I hooked up I played it on Switch and I hooked up my GameCube controller to it, and it felt amazing. So. Yeah.
And so you have your orthogonal thumbstick and a big old A button, a big old B button, and a chonky ass trigger. It's kind of the perfect controller to play Celeste with. And then slight update to my birthday, because last we recorded was a couple of days before, and I was real sad that no one was going to show up. My partner went and did a scare on all of the people that had canceled to say that's kind of fucked up that you canceled for literally no reason. You should come to the party. And I had a big turnout, and it was a lot of fun, and I had a good time. So get you a partner who will force your friends to like you. That's the moral of the story.
Good plan.
Yeah. Another good plan would be to properly segue to our gameplay this week. So let's listen to a tiny not royalty free, a fair use amount of Final Fantasy VII music, and then talk about the plot this week.
This whole idea of fair use amounts of music is actually not a real thing.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
It's been a bit for 9 episodes. I gotta keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, what we have to do is write in big capital letters underneath every episode. I do not claim copyright to Final Fantasy VII music.
What we've got to do is just say Audio Jungle while we play it.
Yeah.
The gang has a bunch of huge materia, but they still need to get the huge materia from the underwater reactor in Junon, so they go there. As they walk through the city, Cloud notices that the big gun that Sam is so fond of is missing. The party fights their way past Shinra guards to reach an elevator down to the reactor. There's an underwater tunnel with amazing graphics, and the graphics make me want to play one of those PS1, PS2 scuba diving games, of which there are a surprising number.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it turns out Shinra is loading the huge materia onto a submarine. The party steals a different submarine and pursues it in a minigame which is way too complicated and janky, but thankfully very easy.
It sucks so bad. I hate it.
It's not hard, though.
No, it's not hard. It's just painful. It's just flailing and annoying. It's awful. It controls so bad. I don't know. It's not hard. It just sucks. It has bad game feel. I don't know. It made me mad.
I love when the YouTuber who is famous for long, eloquent contemplations on video games, specifically about Final Fantasy VII, said, I don't know, I just hate it and it feels bad.
Look, I'm talking about game stories, not game design. I don't know. It's bad. It's unpleasant to play.
It be like that sometimes.
Yep.
So we shoot down the submarine, killing everyone aboard, and there's this weird thing where they're like, we gotta go stop by Junon before we collect the huge materia from that downed submarine. But, like, you don't actually have to. If you do go to Junon and go up to the airport, you'll see a plane flying towards Rocket Town, and Cloud will say they need to go there. But on the high wind, Ketchi will inform you that Shinra's going to Rocket Town, whether you went to Junon or not. So be sure to remember to grab the huge materia, though, from the downed submarine.
Yeah.
So the gang heads to Rocket Town to see what Shinra's up to. And it turns out what Shinra is up to is preparing to launch the rocket. They filled it with huge materia, or the one remaining piece of huge materia that we didn't get if we've been successful so far. And they're going to shoot the rocket into Meteor. Sid is pissed off and vows to kick Shinra off his rocket. After the party fights their way into the rocket, the doors lock behind them and the rocket takes off. Palmer radios in to taunt the party a bit. Sid tries to alter the rocket's course, but it's not working.
And it's every time.
Luckily, there's an escape pod, so they'll just use that. There's this whole thing throughout this where Sid talks about how he believes in science, and maybe Shinra has the right idea launching a bunch of materia into Meteor, but then he's like, okay, we can take the huge materia, whatever. Cloud takes the huge materia in a weird minigame where you have to guess a combination of buttons within a time limit. Sid has special dialogue if you get it on your first try, which is cute. Anyway, the party heads towards the escape pod, but an oxygen tank explodes right as they pass by it. The debris pins Sid to the ground. Cloud and party member 3 try to lift the debris, but it's not working.
And it's every time.
Sid realizes this is the tank that Shara was running tests on way back when. She had been right all along. And it couldn't just be that this is due to the natural deterioration from however long it's been that this rocket's just been sitting here rusting. But it's more poetic to assume Shara was right all along.
Mm-hmm.
Then Shara walks in. She was also on the rocket for some reason. She just can't get enough of being on rockets when it's going to kill her. With her help, the party is able to dig Sid out of the debris. The 4 head to the escape pod and eject it from the rocket. Sid marvels at the majesty of the universe through the escape pod's window. He fulfilled his dream of going to space. How much better would the scene have been if they were floating in a most peculiar way in that escape pod?
Would have been great.
That would have looked real funny. But no, They're sitting. As the escape pod falls to Earth, the rocket collides with Meteor. There's a massive, blinding explosion. However, it's not working.
And it's every time.
Meteor is still intact.
Can I just say I love that, like, we're all like, oh, it's not going to work. We'll sabotage it by taking away, like, a decent, two of the huge materia, a decent chunk of the power that's supposed to have on it, and then it doesn't work, and we're like, yeah, see, it didn't work, even though we took two of the huge materia off of it, so it wasn't as power. Like, I know it wouldn't have worked anyway, because you can't actually, like, fail to get some of the huge materia and it still doesn't work, but, like, it is a little funny to me that we sabotage it so it won't work as well, and then when it doesn't work, we're like, yeah, it was never going to work. Like, it might have if you didn't, I don't know, like.
Mm-hmm. So yes, Rufus's plan failed, and aboard the Highwind, the gang pontificates about how they were kind of hoping it would work, and did they do the right thing by sabotaging this plan? However, Tifa and Sid tell the gang to stop worrying. Sid says the planet is like a child, alone and scared, and they're the ones who have to protect it. But the question remains, how are they going to stop Meteor? Only one guy had a plan, and they ruined that plan. The gang hears the screams of the planet, the same ones they heard in Bugenhagen's shack back in the day. This gives them the idea to go ask Bugenhagen for advice. He always knows things, for no particular reason. Off to Cosmo Canyon. In Bugenhagen's shack, Cloud asks Bugenhagen what they should do. He says they need to look deep within their hearts to remember something they're missing. The gang thinks real hard. Cloud thinks of Aerith. He says she was always by their side, so close that they missed the things she said and did. She said she was the only one who could stop Meteor. Cloud realizes they need to return to the City of the Ancients to figure out what exactly Aerith was trying to do. Bugenhagen says they should bring him along so he can help. But before they leave, Cloud asks Bugenhagen if there's a safe place they can store the huge materia. They stash it in Bugenhagen's planetarium, and depending on how many you've gathered, you can potentially get some really powerful materia that you can use in battle. However, there are other requirements, which are ridiculous. So you'll probably only get the one that just requires you to have Bahamut and Neo Bahamut. If you have those, you can get Bahamut 0. And you're not going to get the others because the requirements are ridiculous. The gang and Bugenhagen board the Highwind. Bugenhagen muses about how he's missed the smell of machinery. Turns out he's really into science and technology, as well as weird planet stuff. Interesting. Also, at some point, I think it's this week, you can talk to Ketshi, and he'll say, oh, by the way, I looked into Bugenhagen. He used to be a Shinra employee. So that's neat. Why didn't Bugenhagen get a spin-off game?
Though I will say that besides like merchants and other self-employed people, the only employer that we've seen in the whole world is Shinra. So I feel everyone is a Shinra employee. It's like up here in Madison, everyone works at Epic, the healthcare company. Like every single person that I see on Bumble is just works at Epic, and none of them know each other. And I feel Shinra is the same way for this place.
It kind of feels like the entire world is a Shinra company town on some level.
Yes.
Like,
fair.
I mean, they are effectively the government too. So, yeah, I don't know.
The gang heads to the City of the Ancients. Bugenhagen finds a weird raised platform with a thing on it. He says that the planet faces a crisis which cannot be averted by human hands. The wisdom of the ancients is telling them to seek holy, the ultimate white magic, the opposite of meteor. He says it will appear if a soul that seeks it reaches the planet. Meteor, the weapons, everything will disappear, perhaps even humanity. Everything that is evil in the planet's eyes will disappear. Does that include humans? Bugenhagen says in order to seek holy, they have to wear the white materia and speak to the planet. If your prayer reaches it, the white materia will glow green. Cloud's like, shit, Aerith had that materia, but it fell real deep in the water. How the fuck are we going to find it? Bugenhagen's like, but look here, writing in the Ancients' language. Cloud's like, wow, you can read Ancient? Bugenhagen's like, no. But he does see some writing below the writing, in English. It's a vague hint about how to find a key. Some scientist must have been trying to translate it at some point and written it down there. Convenient. The gang heads to GameFAQs.com and finds a giant key in an underground cave. They bring it back to the City of the Ancients, and Bugenhagen does a thing with it. A torrent of water starts pouring infinitely around that raised platform. Bugenhagen tells the party to step inside the waterfall. They do, and find images projected onto the wall of water. They see Aerith's death. The white material falls from her ribbon and into the water. But the Ancient's magic camera follows it, and at the bottom of the lake thing, we see it's glowing. Aerith's prayer worked. She had summoned Holy by the time Sephiroth killed her. Cloud thanks Aerith for her sacrifice and vows to make sure it's not in vain. But, he wonders, why hasn't Holy done anything yet? Bugenhagen suggests something is in the way. Cloud says it must be Sephiroth. The party gets a call from Ketshi. He says he just learned that the big gun that was missing from Junon has been moved to Midgar. It runs on huge materia, but they're out of that, so they just moved it to a place where the most Mako energy can be harnessed instead. We see an awesome cutscene of the big gun at Midgar. Then we see the Shinra crew discussing their plans to fire it at the shield protecting Sephiroth. They figure once they've destroyed that, they can kill Sephiroth, and Meteor will just disappear. Scarlet makes a huge reveal of the big gun's new name, the Sister Ray, and I'm like, is this a reference or something?
It definitely feels odd.
Apparently it's the title of a Velvet Underground song. So Velvet Underground exists in Final Fantasy VII world, confirmed.
Two quick things. Apparently Sister Ray was already written on the side of it, so Scarlet just says, hey, I named it, but it was called that when you go to have your slap fight with her. And secondly, Sister and Ray are the two things that Storm calls Scarlet. So then it's all full circle. Scarlet in game, Scarlet out of game. Sister Ray, Sister Ray.
Interesting.
Charlie Day meme, but I don't have any conclusions. I just have what aren't they telling us? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
As the gang prepares to head to Midgar to stop Shinra from doing that, a weapon emerges from the ocean and starts marching towards Midgar. Ketshi says he can't tell if the big gun will be ready to fire in time to shoot down the weapon. Barrett gets in Ketshi's face and asks what's going to happen to Marlene. Ketshi says she's somewhere safe with Elmira, but he also gets back in Barrett's face, saying for a long time he's been wanting to confront him about how many people died when Avalanche destroyed the Mako reactor. Barrett says it was to save the planet and there were bound to be a few deaths. Ketshi says that what might be a few to Barrett was everything to those who died. Barrett says he doesn't want to hear moralizing from a Shinra narc. Tifa tells them to stop fighting. She says what they did in Midgar can never be forgiven, no matter the justification. She says she understands that Ketshi can't bring himself to quit Shinra because he's worried about the people of Midgar. Lots of difficult ethical questions have been raised here, which are above our pay grade as mere podcasters. Anyway, Cloud says they've got to go fight the weapon to protect Midgar. The party fights weapon. It's really hard. After a while, the weapon turns around and starts marching back into the ocean. Cloud says it senses something that's a threat to it. If I recall correctly, in the original translation, he says something like, it senses murder.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. The party retreats to the Highwind. We see Rufus give the order to fire Sister Ray. We see another awesome cutscene where all the Mako reactors in Midgar flare up and pour all their energy into Sister Ray. The entire city goes dark. The big gun fires a beam. The recoil shatters the windows of Shinra Tower. Rufus does a cool hair flip like it's no big deal. But before the beam can reach it, Weapon fires a bunch of, energy ball things at Midgar. The beam pierces Weapon and continues out the other end. Cloud realizes the actual target is the northern crater. We see the beam destroy the shield at the northern crater. Then we see the Weapon's energy balls hit Shinra Tower. Rufus is engulfed in the explosion and certainly dies and doesn't come back. The gang heads to the northern crater to see what happened. The barrier is gone, but before they can kick Sephiroth's ass, Ketchi starts freaking out. We see Reeve talking with Scarlet and Heidegger and realize he's the one who's been controlling Ketchi all this time. It turns out somebody has overridden the Sister Ray's controls and is preparing to fire it again. But if it fires again before it cools down, the whole city could be destroyed or something, I don't know. We see Hojo at the controls of the Sister Ray. He says he's going to send Sephiroth all the cannon's Mako energy. Sephiroth, show me. It's almost time. Transcend the confines of science. In your presence, science is powerless. As much as it pains me to admit it, that is why you must show me. Ketchi tells the gang what's happening, and the gang's like, just shut off the Mako reactors. Ketchi says they can't because of reasons. He says they need to get to the Sister Ray and stop Hojo. Back in Shinra Tower, Reeve tells Scarlet and Heidegger to stay out of the Planet Gang's way when they get there. They're like, no, we hate those guys. We're gonna kill them. Also, you're under arrest. Some guards take Reeve into custody, but apparently don't take whatever he's using to control Ketchi, so luckily we don't lose access to everyone's favorite party member. The gang flies to Midgar. They can't just walk in due to the city's on high alert, so they'll have to take a cooler approach. They parachute into the city, and it rules. We have a big dungeon, which is a bit of a pace killer, but eventually the party runs into the Turks. Reno, Rude, and Elena state their determination to carry out their orders regardless of the president's fate and the impending apocalypse. We have a boss fight, which is not that hard. Although, you can also just say, no, I don't want to fight you. And Reno's like, well, Shinra's crumbling anyway, let's just leave. But I fought them. Anyway, the party continues on and is stopped by a giant mech. The head opens and Scarlet and Heidegger step out onto the mech's hand. We all say, hell yeah, because bad guys are standing in the palm of a giant mech, and that's the coolest thing. The bad guys say they'll show them the power of their anti-weapon artillery, the bafflingly named Proud Claude.
There's always, what? I don't know. I always think of, why am I forgetting her name from Steven Universe? That one gem that called everyone Claudes.
Yeah.
Why am I forgetting her name? She was great. Peridot.
I was trying to think of just a name for a really common type of stone, but all my geology knowledge left me. So we fight Proud Claude. It's not that hard. Proud Claude explodes and Scarlet and Heidegger surely die, and I'm pretty sure they don't actually come back in later media, but I might be wrong. It's raining now, and when it rains in a dystopian cyberpunk metropolis, you know shit's serious. The party climbs up to the Sister Ray's controls and confronts Hojo. Hojo's like, oh, hey, failure. He states his plan to shoot a bunch of energy at Sephiroth to power him up. He says his son needs power. That's the only reason he's doing this. Hojo says Sephiroth always looked down on him, and wonders what Sephiroth would think if he knew he was Hojo's son. The party's like, what? And Hojo is quick to provide more backstory. He says he offered the woman who was pregnant with his child to Professor Gast's Genova project, and they injected Genova cells into him while he was in the womb. Cloud's like, okay, that's fucked up. Are you trying to atone for what you did to Sephiroth? Hojo says he's just trying to satisfy his scientific curiosity. If Vincent is with you, and you really should have brought Vincent to confront Hojo. He says the one who should have been asleep all those years is Hojo. The party gets ready to kick Hojo's ass, but he says he's injected himself with Genova cells, so this is actually going to be a challenging boss battle. We fight Hojo. It's a 3-phase boss fight. We kick his ass and stop the big gun from firing. And I realize now I forgot to put Vincent's backstory into these notes somewhere.
I was wondering if we were going to talk about that in this episode.
Yeah, we can talk about that during memorable moments or something. There was already a lot in these notes. And honestly, when I went to the cave and saw the backstory, I was like, oh, that was it? That was just like a few flashes of flashback with like where you just sort of interpret what happens. But anyway, back aboard the High Wind, Barrett says that with so many of their higher-ups dead, Shinra's finished. And I'm like, obviously, Palmer will just be in charge now. Nanaki says that, according to Bugenhagen, Meteor will hit in about 7 days. Cloud starts talking all philosophical about their mission. Sure, they're all fighting for the future of the planet, but really they're all fighting for themselves and what's important to them. Barrett agrees. He says that saving the planet sounds cool and all, but that led him down the wrong path. At first, he was just trying to get revenge against Shinra for taking his hometown, but now he's fighting for Marlene. Cloud tells everyone to leave the ship and consider their reasons for fighting. He wants them to all find that something they're fighting for, and if they don't come back, he understands. And so everyone leaves. Barrett goes to see Marlene, Nanaki visits Cosmo Canyon, Yuffie presumably returns to Wutai, Sid hopefully goes to apologize to Shara a lot, Vincent is probably brooding in the Lucretia cave, and Ketchi is doing whatever his thing is. Cloud and Tifa are left alone on the High Wind. They don't have a home or families to return to. All they have is each other. They share a very romantic scene, talking about some feelings, leaving others unspoken. There's a time skip during which they may or may not totally do it. There's this silly fake out where it's like, is everyone actually going to return? But they all do. It's okay. This isn't a mother game or something. They're not going to pull something like that.
There is, in some alternate universe, there is a version of this where, like, each character only comes back if you completed their side quest or something.
Uh-huh.
That is called the universe of Mass Effect 2.
I was going to say it's like that, except they die in that one if you didn't do this.
Yes.
The party is filled with determination to take the chance Aerith gave them to save the planet. They head to the northern crater and to Sephiroth. Please insert Disc 3. We are officially 2/3 of the way into the game.
Yeah,
was surely a third of the game remaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So what's also hilarious, so a little inside baseball for you listeners at home. Scarlett came up and needed something, so I had to step away from the microphone, and I stepped away shortly after it cuts to Hojo smashing on the keys, and then when I came back, we were at the end of that segment. That's the speedrun skip, and I actually have never seen, and now have also never heard the section of Final Fantasy that from that skip, because I accidentally did it on the when I played it the first time, and I hadn't played yet this week, so I still don't know what happens on the Return to Midgar section because I have now skipped it for a second time.
Well,
weird.
The Return to Midgar section is real cool.
Yep,
yeah, I'm excited to play it probably later tonight. But yeah, let's listen to some more music, and then we'll talk about the first 2/3 of this game.
So should we start with talking about like what Vincent's deal is?
Yeah, the Lucretia stuff.
Yeah, so you can go to a cave. You're not really directed to go there unless it's like in some book or something that you can read somewhere. But you can go to this cave and you have Vincent with you for whatever reason. And
I will say the cave stands out, at least.
Yes.
Like, if you can come across this, like, circle of water surrounded by mountains in the overworld with a cave inside of it, and you can't get in without either the submarine or a mountain chocobo. So, you know, like, it at least, I remember when I first played the game, it was very much like how do I get into there? And, like, looking around and eventually found how. So, you know, that's something.
Yeah. So you go in and Lucretia, who Vincent had thought was dead, is there. She's some lady, and we're gonna find out more about her. Maybe I should just read this section of the Final Fantasy wiki.
Go for it.
Sure.
FinalFantasy.fandom.com. I'll squint through all the ads. About 25 to 30 years before Final Fantasy VII, Vincent was a member of the Turks, then known as Shinra Electric Power Company Department of Administrative Research. When he was assigned to supervise the Genova project in Nibelheim, he fell in love with a scientist named Lucretia Crescent, an assistant to Gast, Baramis. I love how everyone has a last name and it's never said. When he discovered her link to his deceased father, Grimoire Valentine, blah, 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 this stuff isn't relevant. Lucretia entered a relationship with her associate, Professor Hojo. Him? Lucretia became pregnant, and Hojo planned to use the fetus as a test subject for the Genova project. Vincent objected to the use of humans, especially Lucretia, as test subjects. In the interest of science, Lucretia proceeded with the treatment and became sick as a result. Vincent confronted Hojo in the Shinra Manor's underground laboratory, and amid the heated argument, Hojo shot Vincent in the chest. And then there's a whole bunch of details which I presume are explored in Dirge of Cerberus or Crisis Core or Before Crisis or some shit. But basically all you need to know is Hojo turned Vincent into a vampire for fun.
And he had a crush on Sephiroth's mom.
Hojo?
No, Vincent.
Oh, yes, Vincent. Yeah. I was like, Hojo was in a relationship with Sephiroth's mom.
Hey, it's
a bit more of a crush.
Well, yeah, I guess. In all fairness, that does presume that Hojo is like capable of feeling fond feelings for people, and I'm not 100% sure that's the case, but, you know.
Yeah. So we get all that from a series of quick flashbacks, and back in the cave, Lucretia is like, I'm not sure what's going on. She seems weak or something. She seems to not be in good health, but she asks what has happened to her son, Sephiroth. She heard that he died 5 years ago, but she doesn't want to believe it. And Vincent tells her that he is dead and not that he is a monster trying to destroy the planet and become God.
And notably, he's chasing after what he thinks is his mother, Genova. Maybe if Vincent would have said something to Lucretia, there could have been some sort of, hey, I'm your real mom. You don't have to summon this weird alien flesh monster thing, and you can just kind of stop with the whole evil crap.
I feel like at this point, Sephiroth would just, like, I don't know, kill her and keep going.
Yeah, but he's probably 100%.
Sephiroth has a lot of sunk cost in this.
Yeah.
And let's be fair, he's already summoned Meteor.
Yes.
Like, even if he had a change of mind, he would have been like, well, at least I can die with my mom now.
So yeah, that is what happens in Lucretia Cave, pretty much. Oh, also, you leave, you fight 10 battles, then you come back and you get Vincent's ultimate weapon and final smash. Ultimate limit break is the term.
Mm-hmm. Final smash.
Yes.
Do you want to know how to do the speedrunning skip if ever you want to skip apparently the coolest part of the game?
I'm not sure I would want to skip such a cool part of the game, but sure. Is it?
I
if
didn't
it's
even
interesting?
know that existed.
Yeah, so as most old games are, this game is held together with goodwill and duct tape, and every single scene has to have your party leader in it, or it won't work. And so in cutscenes that are happening elsewhere, they just turned off rendering for that character. Most of the time, that's okay, but in the scene where the Shinra homeboys are talking to Reeve and they're like, what the hell is going on? And then it cuts to Hojo. Both the scene, the camera angle of the Shinra people talking and the one with Hojo, you can travel to in the return to Midgar section. So if you hold, I don't remember if it's left or right, shout out in the comments if you remember which one, but if you hold, I think it's right, Invisible Cloud will walk on the pre-rendered screen to the load transition. So then when it loads the Hojo smashing on the keys, it instead loads Cloud and everybody smashing on the keys at the end of it, because you walked into a different load zone and it changed the cutscene thing. Oh. And so it skips the entire section because there's 2 times in the game where it cuts from that scene to that scene, and it puts you on the wrong one.
Neat.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, don't mash buttons when you're watching cutscenes in this game.
So there's a scene, I think it's shortly after Cloud has become leader again. You can go up and talk to Sid, and Sid says, I know how tough it is being a leader because I've been one. I always forget who has what materia, which I find really good.
That's really good.
Excellent.
You can also talk to Red 13 at one point, and he says, Aerith used to pat me on the nose sometimes. I used to hate being treated like a child like that, but I also liked the attention. I wanted to apologize to her for what I did when we first met. And I just love Nanaki a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He's great.
Really is. So, this part of the game was one of my most frustrating parts when I was playing through it the first time, because literally no one has any idea what to do. And there's a big plot scene where we're like, okay, well, we stopped the huge materia plot. So what do we do? And party members trade off walking forward from the bottom of the screen to be like, why don't we go side quest? And then you go and you do 2 or 3 mostly unrelated side quests, and then they shoot the big gun anyways. And it's kind of just completely grinds the plot to a stop. And I just think it's great that it literally is just, I don't know, and then person walks up and is like, let's try blah blah blah, and you do that for a couple of times. It's this game is so fantastically plotted that this one time for 4 quests that it's just spinning its wheels is sticks out more than it does in basically every other game.
Yeah,
where you have to go and get 7 MacGuffins. Here it's like, oh, you have to do 3 characterful side quests, but there's just no reason to do them besides the fact that the game wants you to.
Yeah, it sucks because I can see this part working as kind of like an aimless thing, right? Like the world's kind of coming to an end. There's a degree to which you're just like not sure what to do, so that feeling could kind of work. But we just came off of one of those situations with Cloud being gone. Like that's what that felt like after that, is like, what are we even gonna do now? Where do we go? What's going to matter? So it doesn't hit like it might otherwise, and instead it just feels kind of weird and directionless. I don't think it's awful necessarily, but no. You're right that the game is so well paced usually that this feels off.
And I wouldn't even mind if the characters didn't walk up and say, well, I mean, we haven't resolved my plot line yet. Can we go do that real quick? If it was, I don't know what to do, and there were 4 different things for you to stumble on, like, yeah, it would feel weird having 2 of these sections separated by 30 minutes of cutscene, but still, it would at least not be as very weird of just, oh, I got a phone call on my robot Moogle that we should go and do a thing over here, and we should go check in on Shara and see what's up there, et cetera, et cetera.
I will say, like, as a general rule, one thing that the RPGs of this era and before weren't all that good at, oftentimes, even the good ones, is actually ensuring that the player knows what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to go. Because, it doesn't have like a quest list or a journal or whatever. Yeah. And so oftentimes, if they don't communicate something clearly enough in the writing, like in the dialogue scenes or whatever, then, you just kind of have to run around and think about, okay, well, where would it make sense to go next, I guess. And that kind of thing does happen in a lot of the best ones. This Chrono Trigger, like, it's just a common thing for JRPGs early on. And, it makes, it occasionally just makes things weird. And this is one of those times.
Yeah. And the best thing about this is that it can be solved with writing. So, if Ketchi and Sid and Vincent or whoever walked up from the bottom and had something more interesting to say besides let's go and see what's happening, or not Vincent, Nanaki, instead of just coming up like, hey, let's just go to Cosmo Canyon because we haven't been there in a while. If there was more of a reason to do it, it would be fine. So whatever Final Fantasy 7, 5, or 3, 4, whatever the third, Jesus Christ, remake part 3. I was trying to make remake be Final Fantasy 7 2, and then my math sucked real bad. So whatever in this part of remake part 3 will probably be a whole lot better done, because it's just a writing problem and not a problem of the game. The individual scenes are fine. There's just no reason to leave the high wind to go and do them. So the character walks up to tell you to go try it. But this game's good. I didn't complain about this for the checks notes entirety of Dragon Quest II, because the whole game is like this, where a text box will just pop up and say, why don't we go try blah, 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 if it tells you at all.
See, and it could be worse. They could have a solution like Ocarina of Time did, where occasionally this annoying fairy just pops up saying, hey, we need to go here. And then you get there and she's like, hey, we need to go here. And you're like, yeah, I know I am. It's,
Yeah. Imagine if the cell phone in this game was a real actual cell phone and Ketchi just called you constantly to tell you to go and do side quests.
Gosh. Yeah, that... like a mix of Navi and your cousin from GTA 4, like just constantly calling you, going, hey, go there. Oh, that would suck. I'd hate that.
Any other memorable moments about this portion of the game?
Yeah, I don't know. This one's weird. I feel like I should have more to say, but like, there are good moments in this whole bit, but overall, it's kind of messy, kind of weird. I like the stuff with Sid. It's interesting, kind of functions as a decent little close to his character, even though, again, the game never actually like addresses how abusive he was with Shara. Like, it just doesn't do that. But aside from that, a decent arc closer for Sid. That god-awful submarine game, like, I don't know. It feels like a hodgepodge, kind of, like you're just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff in. The Return to Midgar is incredibly cool, but yeah, less stuff that incredibly stands out to me in this part. It just feels a little looser and messier.
So this dialogue came up in a previous episode when there was a bit of an argument about whether Aerith thought she was going to die or not.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my screenshots aren't loading. I took screenshots of this dialogue.
I've got the line from Tifa in my old notes somewhere. Just a sec.
So, Cloud says something like he just sort of assumes that Aerith thought she was going to die. And Aerith says, I think she didn't think she would die at all, but that she planned on coming back all along. And the next two text boxes are not loading.
Well, I've got the rest here, or some of it at least. She says, she always used to talk about the next time. She talked about the future more than any of us.
Yes. There we go.
Yep.
There's lots of just good little interactions between the characters on the High Wind.
Yeah.
Because at this point in the story, you know, between an adventure, just all the characters are on the bridge of the High Wind and you can go and talk to all of them. And that's really nice. There's lots of good conversations there.
I really do like that line from Tifa, because I really do think that this game intentionally pushes back on the idea of noble sacrifices, and I like that Cloud kind of slips into trying to like, oh, it was for a good reason, and Tifa's like, no, it still shouldn't have happened. It wasn't supposed to, and that's nice. I also this reminded me too that you can talk to Bugenhagen on the High Wind, and it's interesting because games that have this theme of like people using technology to destroy nature often have a problem of moving into like just straight up Luddite territory, right? Like, technology's evil, blah blah blah. Sid's arc kind of touches on going against that, like acknowledging that the good things that science has done and the positive things that it means to Sid. But then there's also Bugenhagen talking about how like he's happy to be on a ship again, and he loves the smell of machinery as well as the smell of nature. Like it really, you get some little bits from him in all of this that really make it feel like Bugenhagen has achieved some kind of like balance between them, and that is, you know, an option. Whereas again, a lot of stories like this tend to just be like, nope, all the technology needs to go away. It's all evil. But it's nice to see the game use Bugenhagen to kind of acknowledge, like, not necessarily, just, you know, maybe greedy people shouldn't use it to destroy the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Bugenhagen is neat. He's a weird little guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, because I'm a nerd who cares about little fun facts and has like the fun fact that the best magic user in the history of Final Fantasy is Donald Duck, things like that. Holy is not the opposite of Meteor. Holy only does 340 base damage, and Meteor does 800 base damage. So, yeah, they got their things wrong. Sorry. And both of those are from Final Fantasy IV, in which Holy and Meteor are also both plot important, but you can actually cast them.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say too, Cloud and Tifa, yeah, definitely banged under the High Wind. I still remember when I first played the game, I was still like a sheltered Christian high schooler, and I had that scene. I'm like, oh yeah, this is sweet. That's cool. And then I saw someone online be like, did they have sex under the High Wind? I was like, they wouldn't do that. They're not married yet. That's immoral. But, you know, replaying it, yeah, that's pretty definitely what happened. And good for them.
Also, the shot where they're talking under the High Wind is like real cool. They're standing on like this cliff, and Tifa's in the foreground and Cloud's in the background, and they're talking without like looking at each other. It's cool. It's hot.
Yep. It's good game. It does good staging with its visuals, and its characters are good. So yeah, it's good.
So I need to replay Final Fantasy VIII because Sid's whole side quest this time, when you're like stuck in space and things, is in my brain the space section of Final Fantasy VIII. And I just looked it up, and they are not even close to being the same plot. And I just had it mixed up in my brain. Final Fantasy VIII is nominally my favorite Final Fantasy, and I apparently don't remember jack shit about it, so I should replay it.
I still haven't played 8, actually. I need to, but it's not too often you hear people say it's their favorite Final Fantasy. It tends to have a lot of backlash these days.
Yeah. Weird nerds who like abstract gameplay systems like it, and that's me. It has almost no resemblance to any other RPG of any sort, and they stuck a Final Fantasy name on the front of it, and I like it a lot. Gameplay wise, like plot wise, it's very, very much the next game after this one, but gameplay wise, like you don't have equipment in the game. You have magic is consumable, and you equip that magic to your different stats to get different pluses and minuses to all of your stats. And you gain your consumable magic by drawing it from the creatures that you fight, which is very much not how Final Fantasy works at all, which is why a lot of people don't like it. But it's crunchy and weird. It's definitely in the Star Trek rules of Final Fantasy, where you have a systems game, then a plot game, and then that goes back and forth. It doubles up 2 plot games in a row for 6 and 7, but then 8 is definitely a systems game. Its plot is still really good, but it is for crunchy nerds that like to do weird systems shit.
Yeah. It is fun to,
which is me.
Yeah, it is fun to remember how much Final Fantasy actually experimented early on. Like, it's tempting in broad strokes to say that the games mostly play the same because they're mostly the same, turn-based base. But in turn-based battle systems, really, like the actual moment-to-moment thing of like commanding your characters is really that's not where the gameplay is. The gameplay is in like the other weird little systems surrounding it. How you equip, strategize, build, all those, like how you prepare for that, sort of what your overall strategies are. And that can vary so wildly between a number of Final Fantasy games. It's just always fun to remember how much they actually have tried a bunch of weird shit.
Yeah, like broadly, 4 through 9 are the same game, like gameplay wise, but mechanics wise, not even close. Yeah. And that's cool, and I like it. But yeah, anything else to say about the side quest chapter?
I think that's it for me.
Awesome. So that'll do it for the week. If you like what you heard today and you want to help us offset the costs of running the show, head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations are put back into the show to make it better, to offset hosting costs, buy games, things like that. If you donate $1 or more a month, you get in at our Gadabout tier, which will get you access to our Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, as well as be able to vote on our polls to decide what game we play next, much like the one that's live right now, covering Bernard's AutoBuy-RPGs, either Skies of Arcadia or Paper Mario. If you bump up your monthly contribution to $5 or more a month, that is the Warrior tier, and you'll also get your name shouted out at the end of every episode, just like this. Shout outs to Floris, to Kaldron, to Freddie Rodriguez, Bernie L. Taylor, Ron524, Anthony Lerma, Vim K, JFro Prime, and Doho. And then if you really, really like us and you want to bump up your monthly donation to $20 or more a month, we'll not only read your name, but give you a 1-sentence shout out to whatever you want. The idea is for this to be a URL for your Twitch stream or your YouTube channel, or just to make me say something stupid. Right now we have 2 luminaries. First up is Eliza Tantavi, and they want you to check out the Tabletop RPGs for Trans Rights in Florida bundle on Itch.io. The link will be in the description, and also you can Google it, and it's the top hit. Our other luminary, Carr, is a dentist, so his shout out is not for a Twitch stream, but for your own mouth. He asks that you brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I am Sam the Game Professor.
Toodaloo, folks.
It occurs to me, should I be plugging my YouTube channel? I haven't been doing that this whole thing.